Let me get up and grab my tea really quick as people keep filtering in. A few more minutes, you think?
Yeah, I think another minute or so.
Yeah. I think I will get started now. Welcome everyone to and congratulations awardees on receiving the first round of accessory dwelling unit grant program grants. So welcome to the guidance and orientation for new grantees. This meeting is being recorded, so we'll be able to send it out for reference along with a slide deck to you and to anyone else who was hoping to attend but couldn't make it. So we'll do a quick round of introductions just on the DOLA end for efficiency. And then we're going to have three sections of the briefing today. So general guidance, going over the top things about the grant agreement, reporting guidance, looking over the more fine details of reporting and compliance, and then finally a number of topics in the final group for other guidance. So some of the things that you're required to do in communications. We do have your risk assessments in, but we just have a slide to remind about that, just in case. And then a little bit of guidance on our monitoring and compliance efforts. So, as I believe most of you know, but just in case, I am the program manager for the ADU grant program, Jack Wolfling. I also have a lingering cough, so I might drop in and out depending on how my voice is holding up. But so far, so good, it seems. So, pass to Nicola, and I guess since Mitch is here, we might as well have you shout yourself out too.
Good morning. I'm Nicola Donovan. I'm the program assistant for the ADUG program. I know I've worked with some of you before on your IHOP and IHO grants, so I look forward to doing that again. And I think all of you have, your organizations have had DOLA grants. There may be some people that are new to the process, but as an organization, you should all be pretty familiar with it. So hopefully some of this will just be a review for you. Mitch?
Hi, everybody. Mitch Hendrick here. I'm the Planning Grants Unit Manager over here in the Division of Local Government, and happy to see a lot of familiar faces in local governments coming in for this exciting new program. And congrats on getting in the first round. We anticipate the second round to be quite competitive. So I'll pass it back to you, Jack. Jack, you're on mute.
Mhm. So, yeah, we're able we received 7 applications that we were able to award, representing 7 jurisdictions across the state and nearly 900,000 in requests, which we were happy to be able to fully fund and get everything started and moving. To see your peer group here, we have these are the 7 kind of concentrated in the DOLA North Central region and the DOLA Northwest region. So hopefully, so yeah, take a note, and hopefully you can share any peer learnings as this project goes on. For the awarded project types, a number of you had multiple types of projects within your application, which was great. So mostly we had 5 pre-approved design plan projects, 4 fee waiver programs, and then just 1 incentive program and 1 technical assistance program outlined. So for our first poll question, let me get this up. We just wanted we'll have a few poll questions throughout this, just to make sure that just to check up on understanding throughout the slide deck, but we'll start just with this one, where you heard about the ADU grant program. Awesome. Looks like the answers are coming in. Um, all right, I'll end it and share that out. So looks like we have a number of people reading our newsletter, which is great, and our peer exchange, which is also cool. Just out of curiosity, if anyone wants to popcorn out what the other was. No pressure, though. All right. Well, we'll have other polls throughout, but we will keep the other methods. We'll allow those to remain cloaked in mystery. So, getting into general guidance. So a lot of these are going to be resources that are useful, that you should be familiar with throughout working through other DOLA DLG grants, but are always going to be helpful. So we have our Housing Strategies Peer Exchange on the 3rd Thursday of every month at 9 a.m. Couple things coming up. So the one for this month will be sort of networking focused, since we know the people will have holiday ins and outs. Then coming back into January, it'll be focused on housing needs assessments for small communities. And then February, Peer Exchange will be discussing the fast track program, bit more focused on large and urban settings. So basically, these are opportunities for all of you to get together with other jurisdictions throughout the state to kind of discuss and share experiences, learnings, strategies, etc., from on the topic that we've selected. So hopefully you can come out for that. ADU grant stuff may appear as well, depending on need and audience. But also, since all of our strategic growth bills can kind of inform each other, you're welcome to attend for any reason. Same with the land use and housing webinar. So this one is a little bit more focused on us giving information out to you. We are done with those for this year, but since Fourth Friday is probably not going to be a very convenient time for people in December, but we'll be back in action January 23rd and February 27th. So for both of these, we encourage you to sign up just to at least see what the topics are, and that way you can stay informed of any other developments as they come up. We also have a number of guidance documents that are that are going to be useful and familiar to any of you that have previously worked on CDO grants. We have our new grantee guidance document for the ADU program just about ready, so we're going to email that to you as soon as it's up on the website. Other than that, we also have procurement guidelines, which should be included in your onboarding packet. But of course, for this and any of these, we can resend them if you can't find them, as well as guidance on consultants, period and service dates. We'll go into those in a little more detail in future slides here. And of course, we have our technical assistance team, which are always great partners in the CDO, looking at more specific and technical questions with like code and compliance questions, things like that. The technical assistance team also particularly stands ready to support you in any in your ADU supportive jurisdiction certification. So as red dog, anyway, as the as was mentioned in most of your onboarding emails, if you applied with an ADU supportive jurisdiction pre-certification, you will still need to have a final certification by the end of this year. I think we are all on track for that, but certainly we encourage you, if you have any questions, concerns, etc., about that certification process, we would love to get in touch with you and bring in our technical assistance team, since they are the team that issues and finalizes those certifications. And of course, if you have all of your paperwork in and are kind of looking for a timeline, the technical assistance team is also moving as fast as they can on those. So if you have any specific questions about this, please definitely email me. But in general, I do think we're all on track for this, essentially. But we do just want to make sure that we have this deadline front of mind until all of those certifications are finalized. Well, so on that note, I'll turn it over to Nicola for a really quick overview of that process, just as a reminder, or
Sure.
to pry any questions that you may have loose.
And, you know, if you have any questions as we go along, I think this is a small enough group that you can just come off mute and ask your question. So just so you know, so you're already in this process, so this may be a little bit redundant, but anyone who wants to be a supportive jurisdiction has to submit a compliance report, whether they're required to or not. If you're not required, then you're opting in to meet the HB 241152 requirements. And then you have to adopt an ADU supportive strategy. There's a list of the strategies on the program page. And then if all that works out, then you will submit your request for the supportive jurisdiction certification. Technical assistance team reviews that, and then they may follow up with you if there's just something to clarify, but they will issue that. And you do all of that in the Land Use and Housing Implementation Portal. I think some of you have been there already. It is nice to be able to do that in just one place. So that's the process. And even though I've labeled these step 1 and step 2, really those could go in either order. And this graphic is on our program page if you wanted to share that with some of your compatriots.
Thank you. So getting into grant agreements, another reminder that the notice of award, which we've already sent you, is not a contract. It doesn't enable you to spend any grant funds. So please don't have begun already spending anything, and please continue to not spend anything for your projects until we provide you with the fully executed grant agreement. And if you're working with consultants, we also would need you to collect monthly invoices from them, and make sure that they are fully detailed. It needs to be crystal clear what the work that you're requesting reimbursement for is expressly part of the scope of work that we have in your actual executed grant agreement, and also happening within the grant timeline. So if you have already started doing anything or making any expenditures without having your grant agreement executed, we will not be reimbursing that. That's just going to be outside of the scope of the grant. So when you look at the grant agreement itself, some of the sections that you might be referring to more often. So we starting with the project description, which is just the one sentence summary, particularly the work description, which goes into more details about what this award is going to entail. The work description is going to outline the types of things that the grant will be able to pay for, and the outcome is the target for what we are expecting to be completed by grant closeout. So for that reason, we've already sent you some drafts of these to make sure that we can agree on outcome, performance measures, etc. And I think we've received responses from everyone, but certainly as we continue the drafting process, expect me to be in touch if there are any other questions, and also feel free to make any notes that you would like changed. The performance measures are going to be the ongoing milestones for keeping track of performance throughout the program process. The personnel is listing who's going to be responsible for what, and if key personnel changes, please report that to us ASAP so that we can update our contact lists and not be sending vital documents to dead email inboxes. The budget details what costs are allowable and to what extent, and what categories. If there is, for some reason, or need for a budget modification, I'll go into that a little bit more later in this slide deck, but also please reach out if you anticipate something like that so that we can make sure everything that needs to be changed is changed and goes through the proper process. And finally, the agreement details what's required in your final report, and we need that no later than 45 days after the grant end date. Looking at the milestones document, so the slide is just going to be kind of an example of some of the milestones. Each of the project types that you've proposed adds slightly different milestones, but of course, some of the ones such as, of course, final deliverables, final report, that's going to be standardized across everyone. But some of the other ones will be specific to the project that you've proposed. So for instance, the pre-approved ADU designs example here, that's going to be standard across all 5 of you that are pursuing a pre-approved design program. If you aren't pursuing that, it shouldn't be on your scope of work, and certainly let us know if it somehow made it in. I don't think it did, but of course, there's that. And also for contractors, I think most are working with contractors, but if you're not, then of course, those milestones and benchmarks are not going to be there. So please take a note of the milestones that you have and the deadlines that you have. Some of them are going to be keyed to specific dates. A lot of them are going to be keyed to a time frame after the grant agreement is executed or some other action is taken, such as with the pre-approved ADU designs. We would like those before the council adoption act, any type of council or board adoption action that makes them official, so that we can make sure that we can approve of your pre-approved ADU designs before you take time out of busy schedules to finalize them. So for the procurement process, so it so basically, if you are launching a new, if you're bringing in a new consultant to the work, it has to be a competitive bidding process, and we also recommend that you launch the RFP/RFQ as soon as you can. It also can be acceptable for you to use a previously engaged consultant from a different project. I think some of the proposals that you have mentioned that, and just make sure that there is a confluence, or that there's alignment between the previously procured work that you have with that consultant and the work that the ADUG program is going to be conducting, and of course that the consultant is qualified for the type of work that you're contracting out into this one. And we'll also, in those cases, need documentation from you of that original procurement process for that consultant. And then an explanation of why it was preferable to go with that existing consultant. That supports the idea that the previously completed work was similar enough that there was no real need to rebid for the ADU program. If this is happening, make sure that the consultant is given a different project number for the ADUG grant versus any other previously completed work, or if they're doing other work in another program, differentiated from that. Because once again, we want to make sure that we are only paying for ADU grants awarded work, not anything kind of like adjacent or unrelated to that. And finally, we ask you to hold off on signing those consultant agreements until after the execution date of our grant agreement. If possible, let us know if, once again, for those previously engaged consultants, if you're going to be going outside of this, just let us know and we can give you more specific guidance. And make sure that the consultant is sharing milestones with you so that you can share them with us as they occur. And finally, please make sure to share the grant agreement with your consultant so that they know the umbrella under which they're working. So a few of the deliverables we've requested are what's called draft deliverables. So these are basically preliminary or draft versions of other deliverables that we're also going to be asking for later once they're made official. So going back to pre-approved designs, that would be the unadopted draft of the pre-approved design, and we would like that delivered to us before it's made official, so that we can make sure that that you're not about to improve something that is in conflict with your grant agreement. And then we're also going to want another copy after it's approved, so that we can confirm that what was approved was exactly what we thought it was going to be approved. So obviously we don't anticipate divergence on this, but we want to make sure that we take every effort to catch any possible issues as early as possible. So please, so the timeline for that is 30 days before their scheduled public hearing or adoption action. And that will give us enough time to review and make any suggest any final edits if those are necessary in the draft. So, just as we would like your consultants to have a copy of our grant agreement, we would like copies of any consultant agreements or scope of works that you have from them, just to make sure that the book and circuit is completely closed. And yeah, we don't want to have people do work that we can't that they expect to be reimbursed for that we are actually not allowed to reimburse for because it was outside the scope of the grant agreement. All right. For a quick break now, we'll put up the second poll. So those are the questions. So put your thinking caps on as I bring it. All right, here we go. So this one will have 2 questions. Yep. One more, and then end the poll here. So all right. Let's look mostly on target there. Just for clarification on each of those. So 12/31/2027 is the standard expiration date. The folks if you're tripped up on that, it may be because we requested there's the year one report that is due on the 26th, but on 12/31/2026, the 26th. That's just kind of like an interim report, but the actual grant you have until 2027. So it's a little more breathing room there. And then for number 2, it's true we definitely need the executed consultant agreements. Again, just to make sure that those agreements are completely in alignment with our grant agreement, and the consultant isn't contracted into doing work that we won't be reimbursing you for. All right, I'll turn it over to Nicola for reporting guidance.
Great. Well, before I start, I just want to emphasize that if you have any questions about your grant, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I feel like our job is to help you be successful in your programs. And a lot of times that's by helping you with the compliance end, with your reporting, with your RFRs, whatever they are. It's never a bother. I'm always happy to do it. If you want me to review your RFR before you submit it, I'm happy to do that. If you have multiple budget lines and the allocation gets weird, I can help you with that. And sometimes the numbers get complicated when you start getting close to your retainage amount. So I'm absolutely happy to go over that, review that, anything like that. Just let me know. So we are going to talk about my favorite subject, reporting, forms, grants. Next slide, please. So this is going to be a review for some of you. And I know we have some folks that are new to the grants portal, but you should all have access since I believe you all submitted an application. So we do require quarterly reports. They are due by the 10th of the month following the end of each quarter. Even if you had no activity, you can just say we had no activity. That's fine. We just have to have a report. So that's January 10th, for the fourth quarter of 2025, and so on. And so there's two parts to your quarterly report. There's the narrative status update form. It's just a Google form that we had to fill out, and all that, we'll go over that in a second. And then there's the request for reimbursement form, which I say form, but it's form and submitting it in the grants portal. Next slide, please. So the narrative status report is just going to be, what have you done the past quarter? What are you planning to do next quarter? What were your community engagement strategies and efforts? Did you meet any milestones or deliverables? Did you have any challenges or obstacles or problems? That can be anything from, our main consultant left the firm and now we need another one. Sometimes in a rural area, it can be hard to get a consultant to bid on your project, anything like that. And then the dates of the RFP and the consultant agreement. And to start with, you might not have one, and that's okay. You can always just put the anticipated date in there. And then this is going to vary by project, but we are going to require some metrics. Just, how many people got TA during this quarter? How many fees were waived, and how much was that in dollars? How many ADUs did we permit? So things like that. And I mean, it's a pretty straightforward form. But we do require that every quarter. And so I will send out a reminder, usually about a week before it's due, just to remind you that it's coming up, and it'll have all the links in it. And then if, life happens and you don't get to it, I will remind you again, and just make sure that you submit it during that quarter if it hasn't been submitted already. Next slide, please. So if you've had a grant before, this form should look very familiar. They all look very similar. There's some minor differences, but they're the same general format. So this is your request for reimbursement form, your RFR. And we require this to be submitted with your grant request in the portal. So the top part is just, basic stuff. What's the grant name? What's your project number? What is the reporting period? So that's going to be whatever quarter it is. Who did you pay to, what budget line is it, if you have more than one budget line, invoice number, dates, things like that. And then this is set up so it'll automatically calculate a 75% and 25% match in these columns. In the project expense summary down here, sort of in the middle left, that can be a little bit confusing, but column B is the total project cost, so that's grant plus match. Column C is only the grant amounts, and that will include anything you spent today and this request. So it'll be current as of whenever you're submitting this request. And then, the next column is just your match, how much match have you paid to date. And all of your invoices and proof of payment, everything, and this RFR should all be in one big PDF, and you can submit it then. And the RFR must be signed by the responsible administrator. If for some reason the responsible administrator is not there and you desperately need to get it in, the chief elected can also sign it. Depending on the size of your jurisdiction, that may be more or less challenging to hunt them down. But that is an option just in case the responsible administrator is not available. And for all RFRs, we do have to have documentation payment, which I'll talk about in a little more detail. Go ahead, please. So let's talk about documentation. So all of our requests have to have documentation. So that's going to be invoices, receipts, and proof of payment. And we require proof of payment because this is a reimbursement grant. So we need proof that you paid it. So the invoices and receipts do need to be fairly detailed. A lot of consultants will put their hours, especially if their employees have different rates, they'll break down the hours. And that's great if it's possible. If it's not, that's fine. But the more detail, the better. We do need some specificity for what the activities were. You can see down here, like just, meeting, research, planning, those are too vague, and they'll get sent back. So something more like drafted plans for a visible ADU design, or, created a fee waiver schedule, whatever. Just be a little more specific, or the consultants need to be a little more specific. And that is why there is a document guidance for consultants. I put that together so that you can just hand that to your consultant and say, here, this is what they want, instead of having to, be the go-between and explain it all. If your consultant has a subcontractor, we do request the same information for them. And then this doesn't happen very often, but sometimes a subcontractor will have a subcontractor, and we would again ask for the same thing. But that hardly ever happens, but occasionally it does. So it's kind of like Inception for contractors. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So period dates and service dates, I just wanted to mention this because I know a lot of people get confused because it is confusing. So the period dates, when you first go in to enter your RFR, that's the time frame that you are reporting about. So if you are submitting your report in January, that would be the time frame of the fourth quarter. So what is that, October through December. Service dates, when you go in to put in the actual dollar amounts and expenditures, that's the date the work occurred. And those can be different than the period dates. A lot of times they're the same, but invoices and consultants don't always align perfectly with the stars and the dates. So if you had period dates that were, July through September, so third quarter, but maybe the work started on June 15th, and because the consultant invoices on the 15th of every month, and then it ended on August 15th. So the service start date would be June 15th, and the service end date would be August 15th. And the consultant's invoices do have to have those on them. It's not the date of the invoice. Again, it's just the date the work occurred. And just like anything, if we ask for you to get that information or have more or different documentation, it's because I know that if we send it up the chain will send it back, and we might as well just stop that at the first level. So the process is that I review it, and then Jack reviews it, and then our manager reviews it, and then the financial services department reviews it, and we will check for things like, does it add up? Are they eligible expenses? Just the basic stuff you would expect from any invoice. Next slide, please. So this should be familiar to a lot of you. Here we are with the grants portal. It's just what the login screen looks like. And again, you should all have access. If you don't, let me know and we can work on that. Go to the next slide, please. Here's our main menu. So you're going to go to projects. If you go to projects and you don't see your current grant, then what you need to do is request access to projects, which is the one right below it. You just say, this is who I am and this is why I need access. And then that usually just takes a couple days to do that. Once you have access to that project, when you click projects, you will see that project. And if you already have grants, you may see more than one project when you click on that. Request access to organization. You shouldn't need that because you're already associated with an organization. But what that's for is if someone new comes along, or sometimes, attorneys will need to file things on your behalf. They need to be linked to that organization. But again, you should already be set up for that. And let's go to the next slide, please. So once you get into your project, you're going to go to projects and then financials, the reports and payments, and add. So here's where those period start dates are. And then the project activities, you don't have to be super specific here because your invoices will provide the specific details that we need. This is where you can be a little more broad. Is this final report? Obviously, you're not going to do that unless it is the final report. If that happens and you do it by mistake and submit it, I will see it and I will verify with you if I think it's way too soon or it doesn't make any sense. This is the documents tab. You can upload a document here. Sometimes people like to upload supplemental information that maybe isn't required for the RFR, but it's helpful. Like sometimes you can always email your adopted resolutions and things like that directly to us. But sometimes people like to attach them here so that they're in the portal for future reference. And then once you do that, and the slide deck has a link to a video tutorial if anyone needs that. Let's go to the next slide. So once you do that, you're going to add your expenditure. And here's where those service dates are. And I do check to make sure that they match the dates on the invoices. Total invoice amount, just what it says, the actual invoice amount. If you have multiple invoices, then it's the total of all of those together. And then the budget item, this is where it can get complicated if you have more than one budget item. And this is why it's helpful to have the consultant break out items by detail, especially if they're doing more than one part of your project. So if we need to allocate that per budget item, we can do that. Amount to be paid with state grant programs, that's how much you're getting reimbursed, and grantee cash is how much you're matching. You should not need these other two. And then reporting documentation, this is where you're going to upload your great big PDF with all of your documentation in it, and just attach that. And again, if you overlook it and it's not there, I will let you know and we can just go from there. Next slide, please. So you're not going to have to worry about this right this second, but the state fiscal year ends June 30th. And so you might need to submit a year-end report that time for accruals. You probably have a process very similar, if not identical, in your jurisdictions. So we can't pay fiscal year A's expenses with fiscal year B's dollars and vice versa. So any expenses incurred before June 30th or on June 30th needs to be reported. It says by July 15th. I think it's actually by July 10th. Because of course, if your month ends on June 30th and that's when your consultant invoices you, you might not have, your process for payment may take longer than 10 days, which is fine. All we just need to do is report that to financial services so that they know what monies to reserve from fiscal year A, so we can pay them out of fiscal year A. You'll get way more detail, probably more detail than you want at the end of the fiscal year. So you don't have to worry about that right now. I just wanted to mention that it will come up. Next slide, please. And so when you're starting to get ready to close out, just reach out to us, just email us and say, hey, we're ready to close out. We do ask that you do it at least 30 days, but if you think, hey, it might be in the next couple months, but I'm not entirely sure, go ahead and reach out and we can just kind of plan and get you all squared away with making sure you have all your deliverables in, that you know what you need for your final informal memo. That's what we use in place of a final report. I think the grant agreement calls it a final report, but it's the same as the final informal memo, which some of you are familiar with already. Then the final RFR, it's just like any other RFR, except you check yes in the portal report field that this is your final request. And then if you are deobligating funds, it's really helpful if they're in the narrative field, if you just put this is the amount we are deobligating, so that it's clear that you know that is what you are deobligating. The portal does have you check a box, but it's really helpful to have, to have it in writing, just like anything else. And there is a link to the process for doing that. Next slide, please. And then, so your final request, you have to close out the grant within 45 days after the agreement date. If you are getting close to the expiration date, then we can do a couple things. Let's say it's October 2027, and for whatever reason, you just are not going to spend it by the end of the year, and you need a little more time, then we can do an extension. Those are really easy to request. The responsible administrator or the chief elected just request those in writing. It's not super formal. You can just send an email and say, we want to extend our contract to this date, and it's always the end of a month. for this reason, and that's really never a problem. And then we can get those through pretty fast. When you hit retainage, so we are going to withhold 5% of all your allowable costs until we get everything that you need. So you can only spend up to 95% of your grant before you make the final pay request. And that's where it can get weird. Sometimes if you are over, you're getting close to your retainage and your request would eat into that retainage, it'll give you an error message. Again, if that doesn't make any sense, I mean, if the error message doesn't make any sense, let me know and we can go through that. You can close out anytime before the grant expiration date. There's no penalty for doing that. I mean, if you're done spending money and your program is done, then you're done. You still need to do all of these things, have all the deliverables and everything like that. But it is perfectly fine to close it out early. And then we're only going, or you can close it out after the grant agreement date, as long as it's within 45 days. And again, I follow up on those and make sure that we are doing that within the right time frame. You're only going to get your final payment after we get all the deliverables. That's what that 5% retainage is, just like any retainage, really. Next slide, please. Okay. Ooh, we got another poll.
All right, so this will be our poll for this section. And here we go. Closing it down. So, yep. Begin
So,
listening. Yeah, go.
yeah, I noticed on the reporting, the monthly invoices, we need monthly invoices from the consultants, but you have to report quarterly. You can submit monthly if you really want to, but we're really designed to do it quarterly. But you can do it monthly if you really, really need to. And I will say that I did say the responsible administrator and the chief elected could sign it in a pinch, but typically it's going to be the responsible administrator. So you were right. Either
Yeah,
way, you were right.
yeah, we still give you credit, but hopefully you're not predicting your RA already going AWOL. But if that does happen, just let us know and we can update our contacts accordingly. All right, so moving on to our final section, our miscellaneous guidance. Um, so a little bit in addition to the reporting, we have our metrics to track. So once again, the metrics are mostly keyed to the specifics of the specific programs that you are undergoing. So if you're doing technical assistance, number of people you're providing that to. So depending on what kind of TA you're doing, phone calls, meetings, community events, page views, etc. All of these can count. Just let us know what you're tracking. For fee waivers, the number of ADUs that are receiving those waivers. For pre-approved designs. For pre-approved designs, we would like you to track the number of permitted ADUs that use those designs. We do understand that since the scope of the grant is for creating them, that might not be a very high number, but we definitely want to just keep track of it. In addition to that, in order to have that information, but certainly don't worry if, don't worry that you were not going to be able to permit ADUs using pre-approved designs that you haven't actually approved yet. And then for all programs, we would like you to track the total number of ADUs permitted during the grant period. So these are going to be appearing in your quarterly reports and in your final informal memo. going for the ineligible expenses. So I think the one important note is that ineligible expenses can't be used as match. So if you're providing some of your own funds at match as match for this program, those funds can't be used to pay for anything that the state would not also be able to pay for, since it's all one grant, etc. If and If you're going into eligible expenses, there is allowance for consultant travel, including food, lodging, etc. Community engagement costs. So a number of you have already listed, mailers, etc., printing, those sorts of things. There is per diem eligibility, but you have to use but that's kind of the that's kind of like the outlier where the per diem must come out of grantee matching funds, and you have to use the GSA per diem rates for that locality. If that locality is too small to have that, just the closest city or county, depending on the context. If you're going to somewhere in Hinsdale County, that would use the Hinsdale County per diem. Magus, probably Cortez is going to be the best match for that. For ineligible expenses, alcohol, drugs, etc., are not something the state nor your matching funds should pay for. Food for public meetings or community engagement, that's a common one that is requested that is not eligible. So we won't pay for, you know, like pizza or something like that. That is a part of a community education event for ADUs or anything like that. So remember, the grant agreement lists all of your approved costs. And if you have any questions about a cost you're about to incur, expenditure you're about to make, just stop, reach out to us, reach out to Nicola, and ask if that cost is eligible for reimbursement before making that expenditure. If you misunderstood something and went off and made the purchase, it doesn't become reimbursable because you or your consultants were confused about the line. So we encourage you to make 100% certain that you'll get reimbursed for something before you actually spend money on it. So next we have the DOLA acknowledgement requirement. We do like to see our name and lights. So since you are receiving our funds, we are requiring you to acknowledge the Department of Local Affairs in materials or events that are engaging the public about this project and about the work that you're doing as part of it. You can reach out to us if you want like collateral, like logos or things like that. In order to enable that, we have a variety of those. Our communications team can help us out with that too. And in return, we would like to see your name and lights. So if you get news coverage about the event, photography, posters, flyers, etc., any other kind of visual materials that you're creating or that is being generated by your activities, we would like to have that, and we will then cross promote the work that you're doing, and really make sure that people see the fruits of your labor. So definitely goes two ways there.
And we really love hearing about your events. Maybe have an open house or something like that, grand opening of your first ADU. We really like hearing about that. So please send us those kinds of things. We try to go if we can, just so we can see the work that you're doing. Just anything you think is relevant, any event related to your project, we would like to see those too.
Yeah. For the risk assessment tool, believe we've received all of yours, so I'll just mention it. But certainly, just as a reminder, the risk assessment isn't like a gotcha or anything. It's part of our risk analysis and makes it possible for us to support you in the most effective possible way. So will you be using it to create a monitoring plan, figuring out check-in, and figure out what we can do to help you reduce risk. So it's part of the partnership. It's not like it's not like a pop quiz or anything like that. But
And we do repeat that annually. So and there's no superset schedule for that. I just try to do it once every fiscal year. So at the start of the grant, and then at some point during the next fiscal year, I'll send you that same questionnaire. I mean, and as you saw, it's pretty basic. It's just kind of basic audit type questions. I don't need your audits. We get those ourselves from the OSA, but it's just a general overview of, well, as Jack said, your risk factors.
And for our monitoring plans, so we'll be working with you on that as well, especially since each of the specific activities are going to be different a little bit, but some of the components that we like to have are regular meetings with our staff and yours. We can do virtual desk reviews. We also can bring in the technical assistance team to meet with you. That will especially be helpful if you want to kind of pick through those kinds of code or regulatory questions around things. But yeah, but we'll definitely want to make sure that we have open lines of communication, stay in touch, and have regular check-ins. All right, we have our exciting final poll here. I'm gonna give it a little more time for those last answers. All right. All right. So we have 100% on the first one. For the second one, it's kind of tied to the first one. So we will still need an RFR, but it can be a $0 RFR. But we definitely need that continuity of paperwork there. So
And I didn't mention that, so everyone gets a pass.
yeah. Yeah, the poll answers are anonymous anyway, so we are going to have to pass you by default.
You're not being singled out.
Yeah, we have we have no idea. Um, all right, and it also could be Mitch throwing a curveball at us just to keep us on our toes. All right, so very last section here. We also are open to your feedback. We're trying to strengthen your communities and build your capacity. So we deeply value your insight into how effective this is, and what the most effective way to support you in implementing this grant is. So you can always email or call me for any kind of feedback, comments, questions. At the end of the grant period, we also like to have an anonymous feedback opportunity to make sure that we get holistic assessments. So, read my professor, but for grants administration. And we have our final resource list. that, which was helpfully adding into the chat here. Once again, yeah, the grant management reporting guidance for this grant coming very soon. We will email it directly to you as well as have that on the website. But in addition, you can refer to the exact language of the statute or just a summary if you just need a reminder on that. The ADUG program page has a lot of info on it, and we are going to be constantly updating it. And finally, we have our own contacts. So make sure to file these away, take us off your spam filters. And we are excited to, yeah, have this program underway. So if anyone, so we have a little bit of time. So if you have somewhere else to run off to and don't have any immediate questions, you can feel free to drop off. Otherwise, we are also open to any kinds of questions that you may have. So let me open up the floor. And I'll also pause the share at this point as well for this Q&A.
I mean, since you're all should all be pretty experienced with the grants portal and the grants process. Hopefully you don't have any burning questions, but if you do, we're here. And if you think of it later, just email us, not a problem.
Yep.
We try to have as much guidance as possible on the website or, through email or, if you ever want to have a meeting with us, please request that. It doesn't have to be just email. We're happy to meet with you like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess also we've taken notes of those who've reached out to us saying that they want the recording. But if you have anyone else on your team that would like the recording emailed to them, we can do that. Also, if once we send it out to you, feel free to forward it to whoever might need it. But yeah.
And it will also be posted on the website, possibly not today, but pretty soon here. So
Yeah.
It'll be available if you suddenly feel you need to come back and revisit it.
If and if oh yeah, thank you, Chloe, thank you, Amy. Yeah, so I guess if everyone is good for now, we will also stop the recording. I'll just hang on for a little bit until everyone's gone, but yeah, free to head out. Oops. And